Hello guys, time blind reaction of the Creepypasta reading called Little Miss Rarity, My Little Pony Creepypasta reading. Part 1. It is 25 minutes and 15 seconds long. It's by Sparrow. I'm not sure what to expect really. Let's get this reaction started in 3, 2, 1, go. Why is it always the music that gets you going?
It had come to this, and while it may have
What
been
the
a shock,
fuck?
you could easily say she hadn't seen it coming.
She is fucking scary just by looking at her fucking black eyes.
Like, honest to Celestia dungeon. Celestia's dungeon, in particular, to put that extra bit of insult on it. While she hadn't seen this coming, she understood why she was here. She had done things, terrible things. She had never intended to harm anyone, aside from herself just a bit.
Who?
But her actions had put her in the sights of the law, and now she would have to answer for her crimes. Perhaps she could have blamed Sweetie Belle for having somehow divulged.
Don't blame Sweetie Belle, come on!
Guards,
oh, come on!
hold her beloved sister accountable. Rarity had made her a victim in this too, in a sense. Her obsession beginning after an incident with her beloved cat Opal had left Rarity with several scratch marks along her face. In the instant, Opal had lashed out at Rarity.
She got black
had
eye.
Reacted and threw and killed Opal against a wall. The event had left Rarity with confused emotions, most unsurprising, sadness and the loss of her precious cat. But also,
she murdered the cat?
Satisfaction, a reward in the pain she felt when Opal had attacked her. It had been amazing and pleasurable and painful all at once.
All at once.
Rarity shortly thereafter began to document her affairs and exploring these emotions with her camera. Her sleepless nights combining with her sharing of her
she's got camera now.
with the camera and sewing to calm herself. But instead of
she's vlogging
and normal workload, Rarity began to craft a doll. She named it Pinkie after her lost friend, who was apparently dealing with her own confused mind and emotions somewhere where Rarity and her circle of friends were unable to find her.
Pinkie Pie is a doll.
She knew Pinkie Pie had found a satisfaction in causing harm to others, and Rarity was finding a satisfaction in causing harm to herself. The two things seemed to fit perfectly, like two pieces of a puzzle. So she crafted herself a doll, a little one to love her mommy. She gave the Pinkie doll Opal's heart, and used parts of Opal's hide to craft the doll when she ran out of her original material.
That sounds like witchcraft.
Pinkie came out exactly as she had envisioned, and with its heart, could share her love with her mommy. It was from there things began to escalate quickly. Rarity began to experiment with her newfound masochistic side.
Was that a mistake? You said it twice.
Turned her once confusing emotions into an obsession. She began to love pain and the pleasure that followed. Hiding away inside of her home, she only left when she required supplies that Sweetie Belle couldn't collect for her. All the while, during her games of bondage and self-punishment, she recorded and shared her exploits with her camera. Her fellow seamstress friend Velvet even acquired for Rarity a few personal outfits and toys of an adult.
Rarity, please come to the dining room.
Just growing fond of hurting herself for the sexual thrill. She was becoming an expert in it. Perhaps it was her nature that eventually led to this downfall. Rarity always loved to share her fortunes with others. Who better to share this pleasure with than her beloved little sister? Or perhaps that was her line of thinking. It was honestly
You're not going to kill Sweetie Belle, are you?
She recorded the event as she restrained Sweetie Belle, blindfolding the filly, and took a knife to her flawless skin.
What?
She screamed, of course, but that wasn't what stopped Rarity. It was the intrusion of her friend Twilight. Whatever Rarity was thinking at that time snapped her back to reality, as she knew she couldn't allow Twilight to see. She'd never understand, so Rarity assaulted Twilight by using her magic to knock her out with her sewing machine. That night resulting with two important ponies in her life on the floor of her home in their own blood. Thanks Celestia, they survived. Unsurprisingly, Rarity was able to convince Twilight that some pony had broken into the store to rob it and attacked them in the process. With this excuse, Rarity was able to hide her actions for a while longer, at least towards Sweetie Belle. However, her sister was the most surprising of all.
Really?
She eventually took to enjoy masochism as much as Rarity. The
Rarity.
sisters now, with so much in common, were able to share this pleasure, with Sweetie's experiments being a bit more restrained than Rarity's own. But even with the two of them still so close, their newfound joy and pain, the back of Rarity's mind always begged the question. She never had a real answer.
What was the
After
question?
much more enjoyable physical abuse,
What was the question then?
excuses for her behavior to every single one of her friends, taking a knife to one of her own orifices, and giving herself to Blue Blood of all stallions for the sexual thrill.
I'm Prince
Rarity was
Blueblood!
finally reaping the seeds she had sown. The military had drug her out of her bed, out of her home, and strapped her to the wall of the dungeon like a common criminal. The general hated her. She could see it in his eyes. And when he visited
There's a
her
dungeon
that
now?
same night and beat her with the crop to work out whatever was wrong with his own fucked up emotional state,
Oh dear.
Rarity took it. She deserved it.
Okay.
The punishment for her crimes. It didn't stop her from revealing in the orgasm the pain, though.
Oh dear.
All of this may have been a fate Rarity could have accepted, aside from a few problems. The first being her camera, as it had never stopped recording her. When Rarity had apparently suffered severe wounds
How do you
from
charge
what
the camera
she could only
then?
figure was excessive abuse from her hobby, the camera was there. When
To
she was in the
document
hospital,
everything.
the camera was
Then-
there. Now in Celestia's dungeon, it sat there as well, recording as it always had. She hadn't set it up. Had she ever set it up? If she did, she couldn't remember having done it. Just that she had accepted she did, and would begin to document her fun. But now, the demon camera would not leave her in peace. So with her body
The camera
being
is
freshly
a demon
bloodied
now.
and
The
her
camera,
handbag stained
the
with
camera
the
is
flames of her punishment, she
another
tried to
entity
escape
now.
the only way left to her. She closed her eyes, and she slept. Hours must have passed, because Rarity had fallen into a deep slumber, and she was no longer aware of exactly what was happening around her. She thought she had heard a noise, and stirred a bit from her sleep, opening her eyes.
Oh come on, who is
She
it?
expected General Too Good to give her a fucking brush for her mane again.
Oh my
But
gosh!
that wasn't the case.
Wait. Where am I?
Rarity lifted her head, and was surprised to
That's
find
a good
that
Rarity
she was
voice.
lifting it from a pillow. Her legs no longer chained, and holding her up against a wall. A dreary dungeon no longer surrounding her. Instead, she was under the sheets of her own bed, in her own bedroom. Rarity looked about in amazement.
How did I get back home?
She slowly slid out of the bed,
Magic?
and stretched her body, looking it over. She ran a hoof over herself, feeling the cuts on her face that never seemed to heal properly. The burned-in branded marks along the front of her chest in the shape of a heart. Her old wounds that she'd never fully healed, that were all self-inflicted. But nothing new.
Was it all a dream?
Rarity looked around the room
No,
before noticing one
I
thing
think you're
that
really
wasn't
doing it,
uncommon,
but you're not.
still disturbing.
It's your
You're still here.
Enjoying
Enjoying
subconscious.
mommy's suffering?
She spoke to the camera that had a talent for setting itself up. On a tripod in her bedroom, it had been facing her while she was sleeping. Some ponies were watching her
She's
while she
vlogging.
slept, and even though her exploits on film so far had left little
Rarity
for her
the
to
vlogger.
hide, she still felt violated, knowing they saw her every move.
Well, you can just stay up here then in my room, all you naughty ponies. Mommy has work to do.
Rarity turned her back on the camera and started toward
Her
the
channel is a
stairs.
Rarity though.
There wasn't any light coming from behind the window shades, but Rarity figured it must have still been nighttime. She didn't mind working late in the evening or early morning, if it could help her take her mind off the intrusive camera and the nightmare of being taken away from her home and family. As she proceeded downstairs,
What's the
something
significance
began
of
to
the
register
camera
with her
actually?
that not everything was as it should be. She walked past the washroom for her clothing and into the kitchen, noticing a very dim, consistent light in the building. Small candles were lit just about everywhere, but none of the lamps in her house were, providing a mood lighting that Rarity would have normally enjoyed if she was spending an evening with
Are we
someone
gonna have a
privately,
pentagram now?
or even to enjoy herself. but she didn't ever recall setting this up, or even owning this many candles.
Did some pony bring me home and do all this?
She asked aloud, but it was just as much for herself
The camera
as it
did
was
it.
to test and see if some pony was in the building with her. Proceeding cautiously, Rarity walked through the kitchen and into the showroom of her boutique. It was all the same so far. Her house was neat and tidy as she'd kept it, and those same candles
And I thought it was
everywhere.
organised
Rarity felt a bit
chaos.
paranoid, knowing so much open flame was in her store. One unreliable candle could burn the whole place down.
Yes.
Maybe I should put them out.
Yeah,
She
good
could always
idea.
light her normal and much more safe lamps. But who had gone to all of this trouble? Heading into the middle of the showroom,
The camera,
Rarity finally made
the
eye contact with someone,
Sweetie Belle.
but it didn't help any of her questions.
Pinkamena?
The doll was laying in the front doorway of her boutique.
Oh, it could be her.
The door halfway open, as if it had been shut on the doll previously. Rarity started to rush over to her prized possession with urgency to get her back with her mommy, but Pinkamena was suddenly dragged outside by an unseen force, the door slamming shut loudly once she was clear. Rarity stopped in her tracks, staring at the
Is
door.
it the camera?
She
Is
didn't
it the
understand what was
doll?
happening, but some pony was going to be in a lot
Sweet
of
Belle,
trouble
you
to
can
make
shut
her
up.
distressed. She wanted to collapse on her couch and just cry a bit, but frankly, she was too afraid for her dramatics. Slowly turning, Rarity saw the second thing that was filling her with dread.
What?
The camera was downstairs. It had followed her.
This must be very entertaining for
The
all-
camera is
Is
following
it?
you?
She spoke to the camera, trying to hide her
The camera is
fear.
stalking you?
Well, I'll have you know, Mommy isn't here for your entertainment. Now you leave her alone while she goes to retrieve poor Pinkamena from whoever has stolen her away.
She turned her back on the camera and took a moment to look back once more.
The
Just to
doll
be
is
sure
controlling
it
the
was
camera.
them. It continued to film uncaring, as real as it could be. Rarity took in another deep breath and put her hoof on the door handle.
Steady now, Rarity. You're stronger than this.
She turned the handle and opened the door.
What's
Facing
inside?
her fear of not only the unknown intruder that broke into her home, but also of the world's judgment once more.
Judgment.
Oh, you're finally up. Well, I suppose you needed a beauty
Oh
sleep.
my
That's
gosh!
understandable.
Hello, Prince Blue
The
Dot!
haughty male voice that greeted Rarity was the biggest mind
That,
bender
the
of
voice
them all
that you
at this
didn't know you
point.
could do.
She stared in disbelief at the blue eyes of the white unicorn at her door.
Blue Blood, what are you doing here?
She began to look around to see if anyone else
He wants to
outside
marry
with
you.
him, but no one appeared, nor was Pinkamena present.
Well, I'm not enjoying myself. As for why I'm here, I was waiting for you to finally pull yourself out from that nest you built inside of this hovel of yours. Not badly decorated with such a quaint little shack, I suppose.
Generally, Rarity would be ready to meet the insufferable yet infuriatingly sexy stallion with insults of her own to his person.
Oh my gosh.
But the trauma of everything around her was just too much to be on her game today for banter.
Blue Blood, there was a doll that was lying in the doorway before I came outside. Some pony dragged it out. Did you?
Well, we should get started.
Blue Blood interrupted her and
Yeah.
started walking down the street from Rarity, leaving the mayor standing in disbelief at his rudeness. He was never that well-mannered, but he at least had a code of conduct for social behavior.
He is
Rarity grit her teeth at his audacity
always rude.
and followed along, but it was to give him an earful over actually accompanying him.
I was asking you a question. It was an important one and you ignored it. Are you even listening to me, you brute?
Blue Blood gave her the feigned eyebrow of feigned interest and never stopped walking.
Oh, I can hear you. Who couldn't with the way you prattle on? But I have no intent of staying in this ghastly village a second longer than I have
Prince
to.
Blue Dot, why
So,
don't you
if
just
we can get to
F
move
off
on.
for change?
Rarity was fuming and prepared to go into a storm of complaints against his behavior and observations of his poor character, but was losing her steam as she observed the street around them. It must have been very late, because the lanterns were lit in the village, and not a single pony was anywhere outside. That wasn't what bothered Rarity, though.
Very sweet,
Where the
Belle.
light in the street was coming from.
Where is the moon?
Rarity asked Blue Blood, as she looked at the sky.
Oh, Luna's taking the
The
holiday.
lack of celestial beings was giving her panic. Luna always rose the moon at night. Rarity stopped walking, and so did Blue Blood.
Oh,
as he
is
turned
this
to
a
watch her.
dream?
Where are the stars?
Black. The entire sky was pitch black, like someone had thrown a tarp over the earth. She'd never seen something so naturally dreadful before. It was against the very way of the world's natural order. The only light in all of the village, and from as far as Rarity could see, was the lamps in the street that illuminated Blue Blood and herself.
We shouldn't waste time.
His voice was more serious than Rarity would normally hear from him, and it scared her.
He knows more
Blue
things.
Blood.
He knows more.
Did you take my doll? Were you the one that took Pinkie out of my house?
Rarity felt her legs trembling.
I wouldn't
She
think
fought
of
as
doing
hard as
that
she
to
could
you,
to keep
Rarity.
weak in front of him.
Aren't you a little old to be playing with dolls?
Ooh.
He was making fun of her.
You
again,
are
but it was
bloody
oddly
rude
comforting
cunt.
to hear him behave
I
normally
don't want to
as
say
he
the
sat inside the
words,
black
but
wall.
you're
That is
bloody...
not your concern. I need her back, and she was taken out the front door. The door you were standing by.
Blue Blood tossed his mane, disinterested in her questions.
I don't have your pinata mia or whatever you call it.
Why did you...
Let's get to
Shut up!
Blue Blood, is there a camera behind me?
Rarity could not help her voice from breaking.
There's
when she
camera
was
in
that
front of me,
question,
if that makes
too
any...
afraid to look back at what might be there. Blue Blood just stared at her, then turned, walking down the street. After a short while, Rarity complied and followed
Why
him.
were these cameras actually
better than being
broadcasting
alone in
live
this
to
world.
YouTube?
She didn't understand what was going on, but really, he was the only individual she'd seen at all, and one that knew her, so there was little room to disagree. Rarity looked around as they walked, recognizing a few of the buildings, but not sure where they would have to be in such a hurry. Maybe something had happened that made the sky black, and they were all taking shelter at Twilight's library. She should suggest they go by her parents' house to make sure they are safe, as well as check on Sweetie Belle. Her eye caught what she thought was movement, and she strayed from the road.
It's the camera.
Blue Blood stopped to look back at her, as Rarity tried to adjust her eyes well enough to see.
I think that's the schoolhouse. Wait.
There was something by the door. It was moving ever so slowly. A body? No.
Sweetie
doll.
Belle.
Pinkie!
Whoever
Hello.
had taken her away was walking into the schoolhouse.
Pinkie
dragging
down a
Pinkie behind
doll.
them. Rarity raced forward, determined to catch the kidnapper. Blue Blood didn't argue, and that was fine, as she would not have
Who
listened
is
anyway.
actually possessing... Is
Rarity got to the
Opal
door of the
possessing
building
the
and it shut,
actual...
and she used her
doll?
magic to swing it open, charging inside.
I have you.
Cornered?
The schoolhouse was completely empty of any pony. Pinkie wasn't present. Her kidnapper wasn't present.
Who
No
was
pony
it?
was. However, the lamps inside the building were all lit, and the lighting was much brighter than what had been inside of her home or outside. She wondered if maybe
It's like a
the kid was
classic
hiding
horror story,
and
isn't
began
it?
to search around the room. She walked carefully among the desks, seeking out some clue as to where they could have possibly ran to. Her search did not help her find her target, but she did discover something interesting.
What?
Is this Sweetie Belle's desk?
It had a picture sitting on top that warmed Rarity's heart. In crayon, it depicted herself, her parents, and Sweetie Belle all drawn together. They were in a field or on some hilltop with a smiling sun and a tree. Things like these allowed her to feel sane, despite everything that had gone on in her life. Rarity picked the picture up in her hoof, but noticed something odd about it when she did.
What?
As the paper folded, it revealed cuts in the picture. There were slices in different directions all through the paper, concentrated in one place, over Sweetie Belle. Rarity stared for a while in confusion.
Why would she do that?
Compelled by this strange finding, she opened Sweetie's desk up
Is
to
Sweetie
discover a
Belle,
knife inside.
in the thick of
Looking
all
at
this?
it horrified,
Oh no. Please say you didn't, little sister.
almost against her will, her mind began
Killed
flashing
herself?
back.
You make me feel good, sis.
Sweetie Belle confessed, snuggling up to her older sister. Rarity used her magic to set the crop aside, making time to cuddle up to her darling little sis. She enjoyed this dearly, feeling so close to someone that she loved. The fact Sweetie Belle had accepted Rarity's
Some
changes in
pony?
personality so openly filled her with joy.
I just hope no one at school asks about it.
Her behind was red from the repeated beatings Rarity had given her. Not enough to leave any permanent marks or scarring, but enough to satisfy them both. Since the first time they played together, Rarity had been increasingly more controlled with her fun with Sweetie.
You can just tell them I had a bit of a temper tantrum and took it out on you if you like.
Sweetie Belle cuddled Rarity
Temper
further,
tantrum is more
and she
than
used
that.
her magic to pull the covers over them both.
It's not too far from the truth, after all.
Rarity laughed a little, and Sweetie Belle smiled, but it dropped soon after.
Rarity, how come you don't use the same toys on me that you do for yourself?
Rarity gulped a little, thinking on that question. Why didn't she? The first time she'd taken a knife to Sweetie Belle's chest, similar to how she'd done to herself, Sweetie enjoyed it in the end, but Rarity had been fearful of leaving a scar, especially after Twilight almost walked in on the two of them together. She didn't even understand why'd she gone to such lengths.
Why would he go
for Sweetie's
to
first
such
time.
low thing as self-harm?
She just felt an overwhelming desire to do so, to include her sister.
Oh, when you're older, sweetie, you can use the same things that Big Sis uses. But until then, these are the toys a filly your age should play with.
The words felt fake, even in her own mouth,
Sounds.
but they came out as sweet as honey.
It sounds fake as
Toys a
well.
filly her age should use? Should fillies even be thinking of such things at this age?
No.
Rarity couldn't answer it. She just knew that during their games, and all the parts after, she felt so good. Sweetie had even taken to carrying Pinkamena around the house with her, and was
That
sweet
is a bad
sight
idea,
indeed.
actually.
Okay. I don't know if my friends are going to want to play over here anymore, though.
Yet something else Rarity had done without really considering the consequences.
What?
After introducing Sweetie to more adult games, she in turn had encouraged her friends to play along as well. It had seemed innocent enough, mostly. The girls weren't taking things too far other than kissing, although she was sure Skulu had done a bit of touching. But to be
Hello,
safe,
Mrs. Turn
she'd
into
asked them
like
to promise
looking
not
like
to tell
Clotfit
anyone.
now.
I don't think Apple Bloom likes keeping things from her sister. Yes, I suppose she wouldn't. She's almost as close with Applejack as we are. Not even. No one can be better sisters than us. We are apple pie. Almost. We just have to be cut into slices first.
What?
Sweetie Belle grinned, and Rarity felt a small
What?
tingle between her legs at the thought. She squashed it, though. They both needed their rest.
You need to go to the insane
Rarity
asylum.
blinked at what felt like a vision of her past had gone by. She remembered that night, like so many, since this had become her life. Funny enough, Sweetie Belle had possibly become the best part of her change in personality. Their bond as sisters made them stronger, though. Their fellow passion for masochism, something that Rarity had forced onto her. She looked at the knife in her hoof, and looked up at the front of the classroom. The camera was there, watching, as it always had.
Who's controlling the
This is the
camera?
knife I used on my sister. To cut her for the first time. The day I assaulted my friend Twilight with my sewing machine.
She didn't know why
What?
she was explaining this to the horrible demon camera, but felt the urge to do so, with it upon her again.
I can recognize
Is
it by the
someone
handle color.
is someone
Deep
watching
blue.
the
That
footage
night I
in
threw
real
the knife
time?
away. It was out of fear of Twilight discovering it and somehow realizing what had happened. I guess Sweetie Belle must have stolen it. I just hope she didn't use it on her
I
friends.
don't. I'm not
Or
sure.
herself.
Rarity stared at the knife for a while, then back at the camera.
I did this, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Caused this all to happen. For my sister to get wrapped up in my insane desires. In turn, pushing this upon her friends and forcing them to all keep quiet. I don't even know if she really enjoys it. What if it wasn't like me at all? What if she just hurt herself to be closer to her sister?
It's
To
tr-
be just like her big sister.
I was
who
about to
loved
say
her and
that.
She looked up to.
I'm fucking
She
about
felt
to
a
say
tear
that.
fall from her face. She couldn't even remember what she was thinking that day when she first took this knife to Sweetie Belle's flesh. It had something to do with
You said Freebo off. Shut
That
up.
doesn't matter right now.
she couldn't be seen walking around with that knife and had no place to store one. Putting it back for now, Rarity folded up the picture and put it into her main for safekeeping. She felt better with it close by. Exiting the building,
Put a knife
discovered Blue
in your
Blood
main.
waiting
Is that a
outside
bad
for her.
idea?
And unsurprisingly, he seemed to care little for having to do so.
I'm
Oh,
Pinkie
was
Pie.
there a point to running off like that?
He asked accusingly, and Rarity
Quiet!
wasn't able to meet his eyes.
I'm Prince
Her thoughts were
Bluebird.
matters.
I was once a Rarity's
Let's move
friend.
forward, shall we?
He turned to proceeding back down the street,
dear.
Rarity close behind. Her mind was a torrent of uncertainty with the discovery at the schoolhouse. She was questioning a lot of things.
To be continued with Prince Bluebird. I'm Prince Bluebird. I am a subscribe for more and click the bell icon for more. Okay, that's the end of that reading, and I'm just gonna check something. Stand by. Okay, I can't find exactly what I was looking for. I'm not sure what the timestamp was, but I think there was a slight error. Sparrow repeated itself, but I could be wrong. Overall, that was a good reading, but it does leave some questions within the story, especially like, who is controlling the camera? Is it Sweeterbelle? Is it Prince Blueblood? Or is it the doll? Or is it a wholly different entity? Who is reviewing the footage that Rarity's putting into the camera? Has Rarity got a YouTube channel? Is it a Rarity? How is his time with Prince Blueblood and Sweeterbelle? There's something. There's more to this story that meets the eye, because there's some unanswered questions really. Who or what is this camera? Is it a new? Is this camera a second entity, or is some pony controlling the camera? But we don't know, because it's just part 1. And part 2 will be out soon, I'm supposing. Yes, and hopefully I will see you later on. Oh, yes. I'm Prince Bluebird, and I'm a fucking dick.